Good afternoon, everybody. How we doing?
Chocolate.
Great to see you. Nothing like a little boogie-woogie in the afternoon, huh? Well, if you want to hear some boogie like I'm gonna play, just an old piano and a knockout bass. The drummer's a boy they call Killer McCoy. I know you remember that old rubber-legged boy. Mama's cooking chicken fried in bacon grease. Come on, boys, it's just down the road a piece. I know a place you can get your kicks, and it's open every night about 12 to 6. You wanna hear some boogie, you can get your fill. Yeah, you can turn steam like an old steam drill. Come on along, you can lose your lead down the road, down the road, down the road a piece. Hey! Oh, yeah. You can get your kicks, and it's open every night about 12 to 6. You wanna hear some boogie, you can sure get your fill. You can tug and scream like an old jean drill. Yeah, come on along, you can lose your lead down the road, down the road, down the road a piece. Come on along, you can lose your lead down the road, down the road, down the road in peace. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Everybody's looking good today. You feeling good? All right. Well, it's wonderful to be here, and truly an honor to be able to come here and share some thoughts at this very important and wonderful conference, the TEDx here in Atlanta. I guess as you guys know, I am a musician by trade. I'd like to tell you a little story about that, how I came to play the piano, and that is that I learned from listening to my mother. Now, Mom was not a teacher or professional or anything, but she played for family enjoyment. Now, I was the baby of the family, older brother and sister. So when I was, 5, 6 years old, oftentimes it was just me and Mom in the house. Older brother and sister in school, Dad out working. And I used to love to listen to her play, so I would tug on her skirt and say, "Mama, play me something," and she would oblige. And I just was fascinated looking at her hands move up and down that keyboard, listening to the harmonies and the melodies, and it was just wonderful. Thank you. And so as time went on, she would encourage me to sit there and play and show me some things on the piano, sometimes leave me to my own resources. So I would just kind of tinker around and make things up. And she was always very encouraging me in those situations. She'd say, "Oh, that was lovely, Chuck. What was that?" So after a year or so of this, I began to solve the puzzle a little bit, and I was really enjoying myself. And I had this epiphany, you see, that this is what I wanted to do for my life's work. This is what I wanted my career to be. And so I was so excited about this, and I wanted to tell my mother. Went through the house calling her name, found her in the kitchen. Mama, Mama, I got something really important to tell you. And she said, my goodness, son, you're all worked up. What in the world's the matter? I said, Mama, I've made a big decision. You have? Well, okay, take a deep breath. Chuck, tell me what's on your mind. I said, Mama, I want to be a musician when I grow up. She smiled, looked down at me and said, honey, you can't do both. Ain't that the truth? Mama was right. I'm still struggling with that two-word phrase, responsible adult. Not sure about that. You know the difference between a musician and a municipal bond? Municipal bond eventually matures and makes money. But I'm here today not only in my capacity as a musician, but in my other roles in life as an author, as a forest landowner, a tree farmer, a husband, a father, grandfather, and as a person who tries to balance all of these things. And of course, that is the theme of TEDx here in Atlanta this year, and I think it's a wonderful theme, the theme of balance. It's not always easy, is it? We strive to balance all kinds of things in our lives, our checkbooks, finances, our family lives, our physical selves and emotional selves, spiritual selves, and it's not always easy. It can be very challenging. And we can feel, I think, when things are in balance, it feels good, it feels right. You know, it's like the athlete that has a balanced swing that results in that home run, or a balanced pitch that results in that strikeout, or a world record javelin throw, or a world record discus throw, whatever it might be. For me, it's in the music. When the band is playing as one, and yin and yang are in harmony, and that's a nice place to be. And I think it's the same in life, that we strive to keep our lives in balance. And we know when it is, and we know when it isn't. When things are off kilter, we can certainly feel it. When the spinning top is a little bit out of round, when that house of cards is about to fall, when one of those balls that we're juggling is about to drop. And so I think we all strive in our lives to find that place when it does all line up, it is in balance, and we feel a certain evenness within ourselves. And we certainly want a world that is in balance. You know, we've all seen in our lifetimes incredible pressures on our environment here in this country and all over the planet. And I think it's so critical now that we look at how we're going to balance the growth, the inevitable growth that we're going to have with the needs of our environment, and to have a healthy environment. The fact is that we have some 310 million people in this country at present. Predictions are by 2040 or before we'll reach 400 million. And this constitutes a huge amount of pressure on our resources, on our natural lands, and on our environment. And you know, that figure means that there's some 3 million people each and every year, 3 million more people on our shores, 3 million people year after year after year, between the birth rates and immigration rates. And again, that's a lot of pressure on us. They all have to have a place to live, a place to work, places to do business, places to shop, to ride and park their vehicles. And they also have to have places for recreation, green spaces, clean air, clean water, healthy environment. And the bottom line is that with the current population we have and with the challenges that we are to come, I think this is just a very, very critical time in our country and on our planet. We have to do the best we can to balance those things. Here's some statistics to think about. Here in Atlanta, on average over the past decades, we've been losing between 50 and 100 acres a day to growth and development. And even now in the economic downturn, when that is on the lower end of the scale, when things are popping, it's up around that 100 acres a day. That's a lot of land to lose. From Virginia down to East Texas, the whole Southeast loses almost 1 million acres a year to growth and development. Our country, over 2.5 million acres a year to this growth that we are having and going to continue to have. At present, we have over 4.5 million miles of paved and unpaved roads, streets, and highways in our country. Some 260 million plus vehicles that ride those roads, 87,000 planes in our skies every day, 276 cities with over 100,000 in population. And these numbers are just our own country. You know, when you think about this on a global scale, it's even more daunting. So with all of this in mind, this is a critical time in our history, and I think we have to really work hard to find that balance between our needs and our environment. Now, while these are all very serious challenges, it's not all doom and gloom out there, and I'm certainly an optimist. So I think there are some things that we can look at that provide us great examples of how we can deal with this growth. Right here in Atlanta, some of you may be familiar with the community of Serenbe. If you're not, just quickly, Steve Nygren, who is a successful restaurateur, bought him a little country getaway home, about 10 acres or so. This is only, by the way, 35 miles southwest of Atlanta. And he began to spend time there, loved it, started spending more time, bought a little more land, wound up with about 50 acres. One day, he and his daughter are out jogging. Lo and behold, here's the bulldozers. Oh, man, you know, it's about to get a little different around here. And he realized that he couldn't stop it, but he thought, well, maybe I can guide it. So he did a remarkable thing. He started knocking on his neighbors' doors. He started holding town and community meetings, came up with an idea, and within a year and a half or so, had acquired over 1,000 acres of land with a 70-30 ethic, 70% natural lands, 30% development. And all the development was very carefully and thoughtfully done. All the homes are Earthcraft standard homes, well insulated, low energy. All the yards are low maintenance lawns, no fertilizers and anything. There's a community organic garden that feeds or services 3 restaurants in the community, as well as a big farmer's market on the weekend. Miles and miles of hiking trails, biking trails that provide exercise opportunities, an equestrian center, an inn so others can come and see this and stay at Serenbe. I think Serenbe is a marvelous example of brilliant community design, and if we use these examples across our country, we can do so much better. Others, even here in Atlanta, Glenwood Park, that some of you are familiar with, that Charles Brewer put together, has won several awards. Peachtree City is a pretty good example of smart growth. And there's so many other things related to this that we need to be aware of. Issues like clean, green energy that we keep talking about, but we don't quite seem to get there. My wife, Rose Lane, and I were in Germany recently, about a week ago. And boy, you see all the wind farms, the solar panels on the roofs of houses and buildings. And we are so far behind in this country. I think we need to really work hard to catch up with those things. We need to employ them more vigorously. Electric and hybrid cars, high-speed rail systems. Why don't we have high-speed rail in this country? Tools like conservation easements and land trusts that allow us to set aside lands that will always stay natural and never be developed are very important. Renovation of our iconic buildings. Some of you are aware of I think it was $26 million renovation of the Empire State Building in the last few years, resulting in a savings of some $60-70 million over the next 10 years. Concepts like biomimicry and industrial symbiosis. Biomimicry is the study of nature to see how we can do things better in mankind. Great example of that is a building in Zimbabwe, Africa, that was designed after studying these termite mounds, huge termite mounds. And the interesting feature of these mounds is that they stay almost at a constant temperature on the interior, even though, of course, you have the very hot days and cold nights in that part of the world. Well, they'd studied this, they figured out why, which basically was because of these sort of wind tunnels that the termites make that allow for ventilation throughout it. They designed a building, multi-use building, and lo and behold, they built it, no HVAC system, and it works extremely well. So we can learn a lot from nature. Industrial symbiosis, taking what would normally be waste products. The best example I know of, and making them useful, the best example I know of this is in Klundberg, Denmark, where there's a 15,000 megawatt power plant, and instead of having the excess heat, steam, and other products go to waste, the excess heat goes to warm over 3,500 homes in the area. The excess steam is bought by Novo Nordisk, the pharmaceutical company. Also, some of that steam goes to a fish hatchery for their purposes. In turn, the fish hatchery creates sludge, and that sludge is used for fertilizer to fertilize gardens throughout the community. The fly ash and clinker, which are waste products from that operation, go to a company that makes concrete and asphalt. And so you have this symbiosis of usage of what would normally be waste products. And I think we need to be doing a lot more of that all over the world, but especially in this country. Corporate responsibility, something that I think is coming, and of course the very best example of that is the late, great Ray Anderson. And I'm so pleased to know that there'll be a tribute to Ray, a program on Ray later. I know that all of you know who he was, CEO of Interface Carpet Company, one of the largest carpet companies in the world. He had an epiphany that his company was creating a huge carbon footprint. He made a promise to himself and to his company that he would make that at some point in time a zero carbon footprint. And I was honored to know and work with Ray for a little bit. I was on the board of the Georgia Conservancy when Ray was chairman of that conservancy, and he was such a great leader and set such an incredible example. Two marvelous books, Mid-Course Correction and Confessions of a Radical Industrialist, I think. And so he stands as a beacon for all of our CEOs and companies around the world. If they were all like Ray Anderson, we'd be a lot better off. There's no doubt about that. And one of the things that Ray found in his journey was that he actually improved his bottom line by employing these greener approaches to his company. And I think it's, as former President Bill Clinton once said, we'll never conquer climate change until it becomes good business to do so. And so we need to make sure that our entrepreneurs and our businesses find ways to do good while doing well.
Child of the 60s, and there was this fantastic cultural, social revolution that went on during those years. And one of the elements of that was environmentalism. As a personal matter, I began to focus on my musical career, went through some of the bands that I worked with and eventually with the Rolling Stones. In 1981, my wife inherited some 1,000 acres from her grandmother. Her family has been connected to the land for generations, and they have this deep passion and respect for the land. And so that began to rub off on me, and then when she inherited this land, I realized, wow, now it's on our shoulders. I think it is beginning to have an effect. Let's go back to Katrina and the horrible damage that occurred then. Let's look at these fires that we're having out in the West. It's just absolutely devastating, to see what just happened in Arizona. 19 firefighters killed fighting this fire. I believe these things are adding up to public awareness. Climate change is real. It is affecting our atmosphere, causing droughts in some places and floods in others. That can cause pressure on our politicians and leaders to do something. And they need to be doing something. People can't deny facts. Let's do something. Let's do something to combat these changes that we're seeing in our climate and to make the world a better place. I recently had the pleasure of spending some time with Elton John. He's bought carbon offsets and planted trees all over the world to help negate the effect that he has with his carbon footprint as a touring artist. I even got the Rolling Stones to do it a couple of tours ago. The University of Edinburgh does a carbon audit okay, how many trucks do you have? Are you on a private plane? The number of people on average that are coming to your concert. And then they come up with a formula to say, okay, if you plant 20 acres or 30 acres or 50 acres of trees, you can actually offset that carbon. So, you know, I think that's a wonderful way to help negate the carbon footprint that we have as artists. Oh, there he goes again. Oh, God. No, actually, we have really great conversations about these things from time to time. We all have children and grandchildren, and we have a wonderful family with the Stones, and we are all concerned with these issues. Maybe I'm a little more vocal about it than the rest of the guys.
I gambled on your love.